All right. Welcome to the Stoke Podcast. Today, I got Tyler Pearce, the Vegan Cyclist, or VC Adventures. And what's up, man?
Life rips.
Life.
Life rips at the moment. Yeah, man. I came across you and met you in the middle of the desert at 24-hour town. Um, the 24 hours in Old Pueblo was just something so beyond what I ever thought would be a thing. Like it was wild. What an experience out there, right? You were out there slanging some coffee.
Yeah. And I saw you after doing what you did 24 hours. So your mind was probably all spaghetti.
Well, you kind of go in these like waves, like your circadian rhythm. It's really strange. So, at 3, 4 in the morning, you're cracked. But then it's really strange once the morning hits. I was kind of tired, like a little bit fuzzy, but for the most part, I was good to go. You kind of just like reset, and then it's just you almost don't even realize that you've been riding through the night.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but what a should be good. I'm fuck, man. Okay. All right.
Technology, man. It's all good.
Okay.
I paused it. We're back.
All right.
Yeah. So for the viewers, we're having technical difficulties over here.
This is like such a side tangent, but man, there is something I swear about my energy and electronics. Because, dude, just like this is so hippie, but sometimes it is mathematically impossible to have the amount of technological issues in one moment. You know what I mean? It's just like sometimes it's every possible thing if it was on a roof and it could teeter yes or no.
Yeah.
Dude, sometimes it's just like every single one of them goes the way where you're like, bro, how can there be this many issues? It's insane. But anyways, I appreciate you having me on, and I'm stoked to talk. I like the word stoke. I probably overuse it, and it's always one of those things where you kind of put down people that use that all the time, like they're just some bro, whatever. But
Yeah.
I feel like we almost need more vocabulary to explain just that vibe you get when you're riding all day, but you're in pain, you're uncomfortable, you're hungry, you're tired, you're cold, whatever. But then there's like it's paired with this joy and exploration. And so you're kind of, to me, you're just stoked. But like there's so much behind that word that it just doesn't convey right, you know?
And that's the thing too. It's like I could say like, yeah, dude, I'm pumped. That's like one form of energy, right? But if I'm saying, dude, I'm stoked, like we're getting stoked, or like whether it's skiing, like I got a cliff, like, dude, are you gonna ready to hit this? Yeah, man. You hit that, and then, dude, how was it? That was fucking stoke. Like it's such a yeah, it's a way of feeling, It's such a high energy, You never use stoke in like any condescending way, You're never like, ah, yeah, dude, today today I was pretty stoked about everything.
And you don't really use it sarcastically either.
No.
You wouldn't be you like I wouldn't get a flat and I'd be like stoked. Like that's not I wouldn't do that. It's reserved, and I try to use words not overuse them because you'll lose the meaning.
Yeah.
Awesome is such a but when you look at the definition and what awesome really is, that's like this on a cosmic scale. It's just beyond your comprehension, but we use it all the time for everything,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways.
Like 100%, you were so right. Awesome is I use it a lot. I hear it a lot. I spell it out when I text. Like that's awesome. But like when I wake up and my wife's like, "How are you today?" Like, and I got a ride, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
And she knows, I know, everyone knows. But yeah, so Tyler, for you to like kind of understand the reason I started this, right, was to get that stoke was like this stoke movement. That sounds super, you know, gay, but it's not. It's like, you know, it's this like, when I talk to people, I talk to extraordinary, ordinary people who do like the normal dad, right? Who like goes off the couch and tries to do a 250, 300-mile bike packing race, you know, whether he took like first or fifth, dude, that's sick, you know? And so I think as a listener, I created this podcast in a way that I was kind of missing being like, I was missing content as a listener. And so I wanted to create a podcast that got all of these points that I was missing when I would listen to like a cycling podcast or a philosophical podcast or like a fitness podcast, right? There's like these things that as a listener I've been kind of missing. So I was coming out of my driveway once and I knew I was going to start a podcast. And I was like, I don't know, you probably had this when you were trying to create your brand, like, fuck, dude, what do I do? Like, what is my handle going to be? Whatever. And I was like backing out. And then my buddy had this like old 2001 like van. It looked like a rape van, you know, like, but he had a bumper sticker that said Stoke Dealer. And like, boom, I was like, that's it, Stoke Podcast. And then ever since then, it was like, it was the right thing. But
Right on, man. Cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen a couple of people you've chatted with, and but well, I really like what you said about the ordinary, extraordinary,
yeah,
man, because I feel that that's kind of my lane is and a book I'd like to write one day is, you know, how to do above average things as an average person.
mhm,
You know, a lot of people sort of think, well, I'm not on that trajectory to be great. And so then they just put this ceiling on themselves. And we most of the time just all have these excuses why we're not going to be able to do great things. But we all are human. We're the same thing. You
mm,
know, even though it seems far apart that I could stand next to Usain Bolt and he kind of seems like maybe not the same human as me, but because he can do so, you know, he can run fast, whatever. But when you find out that your mind holds you back on so many things, and if
mm,
you shift your mindset, you'll start to achieve things that are wild. And you know, there's these walls, and you get to a wall, like you've never worked out before ever in your life, you've never done anything hard. The first wall is often just starting it. And then you're like, oh, I can't do it, whatever. I don't have time, blah, blah. Once you get past that first wall, then you kind of go for a little while, you're stoked, but then you hit this next wall. And there's infinite walls, right? You just always get to one wall and you go, wow, this is the end. This is the finish. But if you can push through and you get over it, you start to realize just how amazing your body is. And it just becomes this thing where, man, anyone can do pretty extraordinary things if you just change your mindset to it.
dude, I love that. And that makes me like ask the question, what started your trajectory? You manifested your life, period. On an outside perspective, when I look at you, man, dude, this dude manifested a life of that that I would love. Man, if I could go out and create content of these amazing 500-mile bike adventures that are impossible, that's amazing, you know? And so what was that? Was it a mental barrier? Did you just say, screw it, quit your job? Um,
And it's super small steps, and you just try to make the next thing, like you do something and it sucks. So you have to start with the sucky thing. You start it at zero. And the very first video I uploaded, terrible, worst thing ever. The next one you do, try to make it 1% better. Uh, you go out and ride, whatever. The next time you go out, try to be 1% better. If you can just make these small improvements, like nothing beats time. I mean, if you, whatever you do in your life, if you just stay consistent with it, at a certain point, you'll find yourself in a pretty amazing place. And yeah, it's just been kind of crazy because this was never supposed to be like, I didn't go to school for filmmaking. I did not go to school. I dropped out of high school. So like I don't really have any pedigree or reason why I should be successful. I just really don't like working. And so it's so funny that I've worked so hard to try to not work. And it's just, you know, there's ups and there's downs and that sort of thing. But if you can just keep going forward in whatever kind of direction, even if you don't have a direction. Like an analogy I kind of like is you're dumped in the middle of America, you have no idea where you are, and your goal is to get to the beach. Well, if you just walk in any direction, you will eventually hit a beach. It might not be the beach you had in mind, and maybe you started in California and you started walking east. Well, that's a really long journey. Like you know, you could have went left, but you went right, and so now the journey's way longer and harder than it probably should have been. But you could just sit there and go, well, I need to find out all the information and map this out. And by the time you've figured out which way to go, you haven't left. You're just in the same spot. And there's this pot experiment thing. It's not really an experiment, but they had these college kids. They had a group of college kids. One group could only make one pot. The other group could make as many pots as they possibly wanted. Okay. And so then they had like requirements. And the people who would just make pot after pot, just like trial and error, they were able to come up with the best version of this clay pot. As for the other people who did all the research, but they only have one shot in it, right? So even though they have all the knowledge and they've done everything they can to make the best possible pot, it will just fail compared to just trial and error. Just do it over and over and over again. And then also like what a cool journey to look back and be like, I've done all these things. And you see progression. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, the very first hard thing I ever did, uh, you know, when I look back on it, wasn't very hard. But in the moment, it feels just as hard as any other hard thing I've ever done. You know, and that's what's kind of crazy is sometimes you think, well, these elite people have something I don't. They don't feel pain the way I feel, but they do. They absolutely, like, if you're 800 pounds, you walking to your door could be the same like objective feeling I have as riding in Bolivia. Like we feel the same thing, even though maybe the on paper the goal is bigger or longer or whatever. But me and that person are connected with the same like hurdles and thoughts in your mind of like, I'm not going to be able to make it, I'm going to fail, whatever. And so sometimes people will they'll message me a Strava file and they're like, you know, it's nothing like you've done, but this is my own impossible route. And that comparison, it's always like, no, don't compare yourself to whatever I did. Is this an impossible route for you? Was this overreaching beyond what you ever expected? Then that's the point. You know, you and I now have the same experience, really, regardless if yours was 20 miles and mine was 2,000 miles. We still know what it felt like to go through this roller coaster of emotions, to hit walls, to have to somehow have a conversation with yourself. That's the other thing that's been so trippy along this experience is there's multiple people in my head. You know, there's a guy who's says sleep in and eat chips. And then there's this other guy who's like, no, let's, you know, so motivated, always stoked. And if you can sort of separate those two and then be a third party, then you can make a decision, right? And it's hard, but you can choose to not listen to those negative voices in your head. it gets very difficult the more exhausted you are and the more fatigued you are and whatever. That thought starts to like form as your own, but it's not. It's not your own. It's your body sending off these signals of like self-preservation. And obviously you don't want to kill yourself doing something crazy. But once you learn that you can choose to listen to your voices or not, that's kind of the light bulb for me, where I was like, well, I don't actually have to listen to this guy. This dude who wants to do nothing, you know, I can hear him, sure, say what you're going to say, but I don't have to listen to you. And yeah, that's kind of been that's been the big thing that's really shifted me to be able to do these above average things. This is like an average dude.
Yeah, navigating those voices that aren't ours, but we listen to them every day. And it's funny that you bring that up. I just I was scrolling or what? It was this morning, and a group of people were sitting around, and they said, "Hey, so you hear that voice in your head, right?" And the other guy was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Who's listening?" Right? Like, whoa, because we hear them, but then who's the listener, right? Because like we even like speak back sometimes, right? Oh, you should go on that ride this afternoon, but like I don't know, how long I'm gonna stay at work. I gotta be home to my baby, right? There's like so many different things, and we talk to it.
who are you talking to?
Yes, who are we?
It's you. And so it's so funny how we will just get trained to be like, well, that's me. And so then I got to listen to me. Those are my ideas. But man, so many of that stuff is, like I said, it's just your body's natural process of trying to keep you alive and like risk versus reward. And again, sometimes you kind of just have to say, fuck it,
Yeah.
and just move forward. And so at 24 hours in Old Pueblo, uh, man, it was about 4 in the morning. I hit a real big low. And I was just in my head, whatever this guy was, he was like, yeah, you're done. You're done. It's fine. It's no big deal. You're not really a mountain biker anyway. You've done well. Just call it. And in that moment, I was like, dude, this voice is so strong. I don't know if I can overcome this. I can't mentally, I don't have the energy to overcome this voice. And so then what I do is I just start moving and I kind of lie to myself and I'll just be like, yeah, you're done. It's okay. You're done. As I'm walking to my bike, and then I'm going, yeah, dude, you're done. You're not riding anymore. As I'm riding away from my pit. And then the inner me is like, hey, asshole, you said we were done. And then but then all of a sudden I'm riding and now I'm out on a lap. And so you use this, well, now I got to finish this lap. So then it's like, okay, well, I'll be done after the end of this lap. And then what happens is things change, that voice quiets. And in the 24 hours in El Pueblo, the most stoked I had been was around hour 22. Right. I mean, it's so weird because you would think as I started to decline and things were terrible, that's when I actually hit this huge high of endorphins. And once you get that, you call it the runner's high or whatever, then you have a goal. You know that your body will change. You know that if I can just push through this really dark piece right here, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you're not going to feel terrible all the time. And so, yeah.
Dude, and you could totally equate that to like off the bike. Because we all kind of have that, oh shit, our dark moments, like where maybe it's mental health, body image issues, a family member just passed away. Everyone, can relate to that. And I think that's why the bike is such a good philosophical machine, is because it can teach us how to, all right, this is a dark space. I want to quit. But as soon as I keep rolling and keep moving, then the endorphins and the euphoricness hits, you know?
So sometimes it's weird, but sometimes off the bike, if I'm dealing with whatever workload or something I don't want to do, like I got to clean the kitchen. I know my wife's going to be stoked on it, but I don't want to do it. I will in my head sort of think, get aero, tuck your shoulders in, put your head down, and just do a 10-minute interval, right? Like so in my head, because that's I've done that before on the bike, you know. And so I'm kind of just like, bro, just do your interval here, cleaning the kitchen, you know, or you just don't want to do something, and you're just like, bro, put your head down and just push. And yeah, it's kind of crazy what the bike can do for those for off the bike things. Also, though, I kind of think that cycling can kind of ruin your life a bit in that it's so addicting to constantly be chasing that rabbit, to be pushing into fitness. And you know, that's been something I've dealt with over the last couple of years, was like it's so easy to battle that fight. And so then I'll be like, I have work to do or I've got something to do. I always just go, well, I'm going to go for a ride. You know, I'm going to offload my problems onto this bike because these problems are very easy. They're very straightforward. And so then I can see, you know, we talked about the youth or new riders and stuff like that. It's very easy to fall into that. This becomes your whole personality, that this becomes everything about your life. And all of a sudden 10 years goes by and it's like you've done nothing but ride your bike. You don't have any other experiences or any other you know, attributes. You didn't learn anything new. So there's a balance, you know, to it, because it can get very slippery. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where you're probably just riding a little too much,
Oh
and
yeah.
then the gains plateau, and then you're kind of fighting against. And so sort of like resetting and not overdoing it, you know, to allow that stoke to still be there, because burnout's a major thing. And so, you know, for me, I like to do all sorts of different stuff, and it honestly helps me enjoy the bike way more. I've been running recently, and running's terrible, you know. And so then I will run for a couple days, and then I get back on the bike and I'm stoked. I'm like, yeah, dude, this is way better than running, you know. And so keeping it fresh, keep, you know, doing other things, not making the bike be your entire identity, especially if you're dealing with like a family,
Mhm.
if you've got a wife or kids or any of that stuff. um, you sort of have to understand the box in which, how is this being beneficial to my life? And then once I'm off of it, once I'm off the bike, just sever that. You know, so with my family dynamic, I don't talk about bikes to them. You know, I will come home from a trip or whatever. The second I'm in the door, bikes don't even exist. It's just, okay, how's my wife doing? What are my kids doing? You know, let me focus on them. And I kind of just forget about all of that. So it almost becomes a totally different life. And so then I'm not thinking about it all the time. So then when I get back on the bike, it's like, oh hell, you know, I've missed you, right?
Yeah. And dude, I totally have been to that area of my life. My daughter was about to be born and being born. I was qualifying for the Leadville 100. I was racing at the pro level. My fitness was high and I needed to keep it there. I needed to be at the pointy end of the sword. And like, I just remember like coming home from rides, you know, and then, you know, you kind of get a cold shoulder and you're like, well, what's going on? Like, I just went on a 2-hour bike ride. Like, what's the big deal, you know? But yeah, I did that every day. So that's 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a week. And it wasn't until me and my wife had to sit down and be like, okay, what are our priorities here? You know, what is going to give us the most benefit every day? Is it the bike? It's because it's such a personal thing. It's you know, it's for you and for me and for everyone who's listening. It's such a personal feat that it becomes a drug. And so yeah, like I'm in the same boat as you. That's why I really connected with your like recent posts. Is I'm 6'2", so I'm like about your size, right? And all I was doing was riding the bike, but I grew up as an athlete. I was doing everything from CrossFit to riding the bike to running to playing hockey to, you know, just so many different things. And so I've started, you know, hitting the gym, doing CrossFit, hitting the kettlebell, going on big trail runs, like changing it up. Like, can I run 19 miles like down in the Grand Canyon? Like I've never done that before. And that's hard as shit, you know, because I can ride my bike forever, you know, but can I
Yeah.
run? So, and then that just sparks a whole new like beast mode dad mode, if that makes sense. Like I want to be the baddest ass dad, whether it's like running, cycling, the gym or whatever, you know. I want my daughter's boyfriend to come in one day, hopefully 20 years from now, and it's like, oh dang, your dad's intimidating, you know, rather than just the cyclist like kind of cracked out like, oh hello.
I just saw something about how the typical athletic body benefits to every sport but endurance sports. You know, so if you look at a football player or you know, a gymnast, those body styles don't prevail in endurance sports, right? It's you know, you look frail and weak, and in the moment, in that community, you know, being sticks and bones is like, oh hell yeah, dude, that dude's fine. That guy's so lean. But I've found that as I sort of let go of that tip top, you know, sphere of cycling fitness, I've actually felt so much more harder to kill and tough and resilient. And now I feel as if I'm a better husband to my wife, a better parent to my kids, um, because I'm not completely and utterly drained every time I come home from a ride. You know, if I'm doing a 6 to 8 hour ride all the time, I have no energy. And I was actually kind of like maybe really rethink everything. My daughter and I, she loves to wrestle. So like at night we get on the bed and we just play games and we wrestle, and it's just like this her favorite thing. And so many times I would be like, baby, I'm cracked. You know what I mean? I'm done. And I kept thinking, bro, you're fit as shit, and you can't play with a 5 year old like girl. Like, what a weak, you're weak, you know, like, dude. And so I kind of had to think, like, man, what is my priorities here? And again, you can chase that watt per kilo indefinitely. And yeah, for me, like 5 watt per kilo over is a full-time job. It's my entire life to maintain that. And it's fun to achieve that at one point, right? It's cool to like go on that journey. You learn a lot about yourself, but to maintain it, dude, my whole life's in shambles. So, and the difference isn't that much. So 4.5 watt per kilo FTP, I'm a functioning human. That 0.5 to go 5.0, it I'm not a functioning human.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not even that big of a difference, right? Like, so yeah, it's crazy.
And then with gaining muscle and gaining strength, right? At least in my own like personal experience, dude, I feel so powerful. Like, you know, when I was at my tip top shape weighing like 158 was my lowest. I was like a Tesla, you know, like I wouldn't even say I was like a Nissan, you know, like or a Hyundai Sonata, you know, just like I can hold 80 miles an hour for a long time. Dude, now I feel like a Mustang GT, right? My gas mileage is super low, but if
Yeah.
anyone were to try to pull a sprint, like you can't, you just can't with me because all I'm doing is training those quick muscle fibers. The sprint might not last 15 seconds or more, but man, that first 5 seconds, I can go from 300 watts to 1200 in a second. Boom, you know, just like that's the training I've been doing. And so I feel so good and happy. And I'm a mountain biker. So when it comes to like punching like little hills or like descending, I feel like it's benefiting me, you know? And so
Yeah, I mean, there's benefits all around. It's just more about how does that apply to your life. And so if you're 18 years old and you got nothing going on, you got no responsibilities, dude, go get a 6 watt per kilo. You know what I mean? Like whatever. Put all your time and effort into it. But at a certain point, don't feel that you need to put all this energy into something when maybe it's not your job. It's just a hobby, right? Like we take it so seriously. We have sponsors all over us, like for a cat 4 local park crit. You know what I mean? It's a weird sport how serious we take it. But for me, what's so wild, and I made that post about over the last 2 years, I've gained about 30 pounds, which is wild. But the body dysmorphia in my head is so strange because I couldn't see how I looked. I saw myself as peak performance. And my wife and all, family and friends, they would always say, "You look like you're sick." And I would hear, "Bro, your watt per kilo looks dope," And so I wouldn't hear it as my wife going, "Can you not be so skinny?" There's a couple times where like this is weird, but we'd be intimate, and she's like, "Your hips are like poking me," like you don't feel, you're just bones. And it's so like I feel embarrassed now that I look back on this big part of my life where, dude, I was just like fading away. And I also feel like as being plant-based, when I posted that side by side, the one where I was light, that is like the typical, if you said I'm a vegan and you saw this like frail human, you'd be like, yeah, it's totally what I expect to see. And that's not what I want to be anymore. I want to kind of try a new journey. And man, that like I don't lift crazy, but just having this power in my arms just feels better. Like my posture's better, the way I hold myself is better. Um, Again, I'm not as fast on the bike, but dude, I come home with my daughter and I can play for hours with her. Again, my relationship with my wife has absolutely hockey sticked. Uh, we've been together for 20 years, and man, our intimacy level right now is like next level, and that's really cool because at 20 years, it's really hard to like re-spark the flame. You kind of get into a point where you're best friends, but you've seen each other a lot, And so uh, both my wife and I have now sort of like embarked on a new physical journey together. And that's super rare in a relationship to try to stay on the same page, because over years you will grow together, then you'll grow apart, and you try to like pull it back together. But she has actually gotten super into fitness, which that's not been her MO at all. But she's been doing workouts and lifting. And I mean, we're both almost 40. She's looking the best she's ever looked, which then drives me like, well, shit, I got to keep my side of the street clean. So like we're both kind of in this arms race of like how can we improve our bodies for each other, which has just made our relationship, hit this whole new level, because we already have communication, we have trust, we have deep love, we have history, and that like raw intimate side just kind of wasn't there for a little while, because of me for the most part. But then she also didn't feel like she needed to keep her body up because I'm just twig and berries. And so, man, it's been that's probably the biggest change that I've seen that I didn't expect, is how much a little extra weight would improve, my relationship with my wife. Also hormone wise. So uh, I I really was interested in how my testosterone would crash after these insane all night, multi-day high stress, because there was a couple times where I felt like I would go into a physically induced depression
Mhm.
where I used up all my fun tickets in my brain. Um, I have no fat on me whatsoever. Like, and the lower your body fat percentage goes, you can get to a point where your hormones just shut off.
Yeah.
And I would get into these weird moments where, like, just getting out of bed felt like an impossible route. Like, just getting up was so hard. Uh, and this like lasted for almost 2 years, kind of on and off. Um, I, I I didn't get tested for Epstein-Barr, but I sort of feel like maybe I had something like that, or it was just that I was way too lean and way too light. But it just, my brain just had like nothing to run off of. And so, I just pushed through, and you kind of go through these ebbs and flows. But now with this extra weight, my hormones are so steady. Like, I don't have these like crazy, you know, ups and downs, um, which has also been just, yeah, like totally, totally good.
Yeah. And it's so true. Even like when you are training that much and you don't have that extra loving, um, like on your body, you don't have the energy, like you said, for when you do a ride at 7 in the morning and you get done at 12, your whole day is ruined, right? Like, yeah, you just maybe boosted your TSS, score, but like your day's ruined, like you can't go to the park and play with your daughter. You can't go up the slide. You don't want to go up the slide. You're moody. It's my own experience. You get moody. You're like, babe, I just want to just like chill out. Like, we just, like, no, it's 1 o'clock. Just because you went on a ride and chose to do that and aren't adequately to wait. No, I'm not giving you the luxury to sit on the couch all day, because my wife holds me accountable, right?
Well, and that's, you need to shift your perspective on that. When the ride is done, the workout isn't. So like, that's how I help with my head, is that when I get home, I don't go, wow, I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
I go, well, that's just interval one. Interval two is connecting with my wife, and then interval three is with my kids or work or whatever. And if you just kind of broaden, okay, just like a ride, if you're going to do 100 miles, at mile 5, you feel fine because you have 100 miles to go. But if you're only doing 8 miles at mile 5, you're kind of like, oh man, I'm sort of done, right? Your ceiling is there. And I mean, this happens with, I've done 1,000-mile bike ride from Oceanside to Durango, Colorado, and at 300 miles, I felt like we had just started. It was so strange how my body changes the way it's going to deliver energy because of how insane the ceiling was. So if you just put this insane goal out there, and it's like, you shoot for the stars and you land on the moon, kind of thing. You set the bar so ridiculously high that even when you don't quite achieve that, you've gone so much further than what you would have, originally thought. And so, yeah, for me, like, the bike is just one component of the day. Um, and I, dude, I love the bike so much. I love how it connects me with nature, and like, as a self-identifying alpha male, I guess, like, it connects me with this primal hunter gatherer type thing where I go out, I hunt KOMs or whatever. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm not, but I'm going and I'm doing a thing outside, and then I come home and my wife is, cooked dinner, and then I'm back in the cave. And to me, that is one of my favorite things, is to go out. just have an adventure, then come home to, yeah, to this like warm, loving cave.
Your
But
tribe.
you have to bring totally, yeah, I brought my tribe some TSS, right? Like whatever. And so when you look at it that way, there are times where I will be overloaded with oxytocin and like just dopamine and all these like love chemicals, where I just sit and I just smile from ear to ear looking at my wife and my kids. And uh, a lot of that has to do with the physical exertion. So, another thing is, a lot of people say, well, I we had a kid, I don't ride anymore. Um, they give up their side for their family because that seems like the right thing to do. And obviously there's a balance to it, but you can't be the best version of you without you putting time into you. And you can be I feel like I can be a better father, a better husband, a better business owner, a better human by having that personal time to myself, and really working through my issues out amongst the trees. And again, you can take it too far, but if you're overweight, if you're out of shape, those are things that will contribute to you not being the best version of you for your kids, for your wife, to your friends, whatever in your life, And so it's counterintuitive, but you have to have a talk with your partner and be like, look, I I kind of need this to be what you need me to be. Um, and then if they understand that and you prove it, so if you go, I need this to be what I need to be, then you come home and you go take a 5 hour nap.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not working out. But if you go do your thing, you get your work done, and then you come home and you're bright and you're energetic and you look good and you feel good, I mean, you'll just pass that along. And the way that I sort of, this is so hippie, but I look at this like happiness as like this glowing orb, and we share it, we pass it around the family. And so when I go out for an adventure, I take that orb with me. It's mine. And I'm just feeding off this glowing energy as I'm out in the woods. But when I get home, I've recharged this like sphere of happiness. And now I need to pass it back to my wife, to my kids. And sometimes we can all huddle around it and feed off of it, but you kind of have to pass that around a little bit. And in my head, I sometimes think, okay, I, I owe my wife this little glowing orb because I've been hanging on to it all day. And so then passing off um, that to her, where, okay, maybe I'm no longer riding and I'm taking the doing all the stuff I don't really want to do. Uh, it helps me justify it in my head to where I don't feel resentful, or I mean, like, some of these words are kind of harsh or like deep, but I feel happy to not be happy, if that makes any sense. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm putting in my work, and my wife went to town, she's working out, she's whatever, she's got the orb now, she's vibing, and it makes me happy that she's doing that, even though I'm at home doing work or whatever the case.
Yeah, because if you went out every day and took the orb with you, and then you got home and you still got the orb, and your wife doesn't get to do the things that she needs to do, well, guess what? She's gonna throw that orb out the window. Like,
Yeah.
no, it totally makes sense, and I think having those hard conversations, are crucial to the longevity of a relationship. And like my wife, she's an ultra runner, and so what we've kind of started our life together on a platform of fitness and of health and longevity. That's what we knew. We were like, we planned our day around when we were going to go get out before we've created a family. So it would be like, okay, we wake up in the morning, we eat breakfast, and it's like, cool, 10 o'clock, she's doing a 15-mile run. I'm going to go out for 2 hours, and we come back and we both got the orbs charged, you know? Then when we had a baby, it completely changed because, mom, she's kind of out for the count after they have a baby, like for 6 weeks. So dad was just going out and getting my dose of
Yeah.
oxytocin. I'd come back and I'd bring it home, and she was resent me because it's like an alcoholic. We're both alcoholics in the form of fitness. I'm going out and going to the bars and drinking, and then I'm coming home, but she wants to drink so bad. She wants to do fitness, so she wants to go run so bad. So when I come home, I have to almost like downplay it, like, my ride was okay, whatever. She was at home, recovering. But now, like, our daughter's a year and a half, and now she's like she's back on it. And so now we plan our days around, okay, you go, I'll watch the baby. Okay, you get back, I'll go. And we've kind of really found a good system. But if we don't have that and our routine's thrown off, it's like the domino effect. You can see it almost affect the family structure if we don't have those means of getting out
And as your kid get older, it gets so easy. It becomes way more easy when your kids are a little more self-sufficient.
yeah.
Uh, you know, you have problems of poopy diapers too. Then my daughter's got dance. She's got, soccer. She does basketball. She's gymnastics. She's doing all sorts of stuff. So then as they get older, you get like these new issues and these new hurdles, but
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit easier when they're a baby. There's not much you can do. You kind of just have to give all that time to them.
Yeah.
But that's crazy that your relationship is with an ultra runner, which is so time consuming. And so I've always thought I'm very lucky that I have a partner who isn't she's not an athlete. For her, she would rather just sit in the backyard and read a book.
Yeah.
She's very chill. If we go on vacation somewhere, she just wants to sit and read, and I want to go climb whatever mountain I see around me.
Yeah.
And so it's been really beneficial for us because when we separate, she gets to have her downtime. I get to go be active. Then when we come together, I'm less active, but she's more active than she really wants to be. So we kind of meet in that perfect middle. Because I can't just sit still. Like, it's really difficult. If we go watch a movie, like in the theater, dude, it's like painful to
Yeah.
just sit there. And I'm like, and then she doesn't quite get that. You know what I mean? But so that's crazy that you're able to make that work where you and your partner both have such extreme hobbies, time consuming hobbies.
Yeah.
That's a hurdle I haven't dealt with.
Yeah. So when you were saying about like you started running, I didn't have a choice. Like when our like quality time is, well, first I got her a bike so that she can enjoy the sport I do, because she's an ultra runner. She kind of likes that, like the seeking of pain. But then also on contrary, I had to get running shoes and like go on runs with her, and then so it was like this good balance. But then all of a sudden I hated running at the beginning. I was like, fuck, we've been running for like 30 minutes and I'm already dead. And like we've gone 4 miles and I'm cramping and I'm sore for a week, to now, like if I cannot run or if I cannot ride, I'll choose to run because the fitness, I mean, it's crazy how fun it is now. I mean, when you
Dude,
go out,
once you get the technique down, it becomes the most primal. I mean, our bodies are literally designed to run.
yeah,
I mean, that's what the whole structure. So once you figure it out, you actually can hit this point in which you're like, this is what I was meant to do. I'm chasing this gazelle down. And I just did a 6:59 10K,
I saw
like
that.
just sub 7, but at a certain point, I was floating. I wasn't running. There wasn't impact. It wasn't like, I mean, it was just like a cartoon where the legs are just spinning underneath me. And I was just floating. And it felt so good because it's just you. Like, it's just, like, there's no, the bike is neat when you're connected with the bike and it feels like an extension of you.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of cool. But with running, there isn't anything to get in the way. So when you connect with yourself and your body and your mind, it's kind of a new level of meditation, or like centering me. And I've always heard people talk about this with running. They're like, just give it time, you'll love it. I'm like, no, bro, I'm never gonna love
Yeah.
this. But you just, the way your body is, how your breath work is. I mean, it's such a active form of meditation. And I yeah, it's kind of, a lot of people talk about this stuff and it seems hippie if you've never like achieved that. But once you do, then you understand like how amazing it is to have a body that can function at a high level. And what's that quote? Like, it's like a Socrates quote where it's like, the greatest shame a man can feel in his life is not realizing the potential of his physical form,
Yeah.
something along those way,
Yeah.
and being fit feels fucking good,
It feels
but
great. And
yeah.
like, I'm curious about your experience too, because you've hit your limits on the bicycle. Like, you've always seeked your furthest exploration of like what Tyler can do. And how is that shifting now and changing? Like, I'm noticing that you are starting to like experiment with that quote of, it feels good to be fit, right? Like, are you still, I know you're still probably seeking your end all, like how far can I push the bicycle, but are you going to
Well,
start?
I've gotten to a point where I can't really go much further. um I've always said this with the impossible routes, like, what, everyone has to be harder. So at what point are we riding on the moon? And Bolivia was a bit like that. It was sort of, it, you can't really make it any harder, right? This is my absolute ceiling. And so then what's difficult is once you do these crazy hard things, everything else sort of doesn't feel that important. A 20-mile group ride definitely doesn't feel like 3 days in Bolivia. Um, and then I feel, as a content creator, well, how do I keep raising the bar? But if you just keep doing that, it's just this escalator to space. And so I've kind of had to come to terms with, like, I need to find a new mountain to climb. And how can I still get this feeling of progression, and achieving something and working towards a goal? And so the bike has been something that I've kind of, I don't want to say put on the back burner. I want new experiences and new adventures, but I just want to do them in a little bit of a different way,
Yeah.
and not do the same thing over and over. But it's been very difficult because, you know, to get that endorphin dump, now I have to ride for 40 days straight or some shit. When I rode my first mile, I rode 1 mile. I was so stoked. I had this just dump of feel goods. And then you go a little further, a little further, a little further. And so then now the impossible routes honestly started to feel, when we did France, I
Yeah.
got done and I felt empty. I was like, this wasn't hard enough. Like, I need more. I am not ready to feel that I earned rest. And it's like, dude, that's insane. We've been riding across France for 3 days, and I feel not validated, or I don't. It's so hard to explain because there's a feeling you get when you do something so beyond your capabilities, that you feel so much gratitude and pride of this crazy achievement. When I did the volcano, the very first impossible route, that was so beyond what I could have ever done. And when I got done, I thought, dude, this is above average. This isn't just a 60-mile ride on Strava. I mean, this is something that to this point, no one else had actually done. No one else had done this dirt side. So then I felt this level of legacy. Like this is a lifetime achievement that I just made. I'm never going to forget this. And so then I got really addicted to that feeling, and then I kept trying to chase those. But around, yeah, like end of season 2, I wasn't getting that feeling anymore. And so then it was really upsetting because I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not getting this feeling that I'm chasing? And so shifting to maybe doing other things has I did a trail run race. It was
Yeah.
a 10K. Dude, I felt so amazing afterwards. It was only like 45 minutes or 46 minutes or whatever, but since it was so new and I'm like competing and everything's new and it's a really technical trail run. So you're like running down cliffs and stuff. And so it was kind of like gnarly, the adrenaline was up. And afterwards, I just felt on such a high. And I was like, yes, dude. And so I reset that bar to where 45 minutes gave me the same feeling as a 12-day ride across the country or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, it's been good.
Isn't that crazy? The perspective of just, I could run 2 miles and it's like, whoa. And I'd have to ride 60 miles to get that same like fatigue. 60 miles hard, It's, yeah, the world of exploring the body is like just trippy. Because when you think you've mastered one thing, oh, sweet, just get off the bike and run. And you're just like, whoa, I'm not used to this. Or they even like yoga. Talk about hard. Have you done like a solid yoga class?
Yeah, if you do a class though, I think I'm great at yoga until you do a class and people are folding themselves in half.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, your body can do that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
And you're
it's
like we're endurance athletes where we're like, all right, exhale, touch the toes. We're like barely touching the toes, and like these women are just full fold, like face in their knees. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, and that's what I kind of didn't really like about being super elite cyclist, which obviously I've never really been like that amazing, but I have gotten to a 5.5 watt per kilo FTP at one point. And I remember when I was doing my 20-minute test, I was watching this power that I could not believe, and I was bored. I was like, I don't really like what I'm doing right now. Just that grind of like every workout, every pedal, there's no junk miles. It's that's fun for a little while, but at a certain point, I was like, what am I doing this for? And then I went to my physical therapist, Tim Wu, and uh, he would have me do these basic like moves, and I couldn't do them.
Yeah.
I couldn't like rotate my arm like like with my back on. And then I started thinking, dude, what is this? I thought I was super fit and like indestructible, and bro, I can barely move my body.
Yeah.
That's so one dimensional and so strange. And so I think sometimes people, or this is how it is for me, is that I had this one singular focus goal of watt per kilo. And I dove so deep into that. And that became the only thing that mattered, that I literally developed body dysmorphia. I was eating 1 time a day, right? Like extreme intermittent fasting, and like not stretching, not doing any of this other stuff. And so then my body is just like, even though I'm so fit on a bicycle going uphill, everything else in my life is not good. And so if you can just let that ego go away, I did a race ride last night, and got clapped out. These two guys just, dude, rode away from me. I couldn't make the bridge. I was like, and usually that would make me so angry, like, damn it. But I was like, I'm fine. And so I'm okay with them beating me. And I didn't, when I was done, I still had a really good time, and it was a super fun race ride. But instead of me being so upset that I didn't make this move, I was just like, dude, I got a great workout in, and I feel just better overall as a human than to chase that. And so, like, if you're in that point where you're trying to achieve this certain level of fitness, and you think that's going to bring you happiness, uh, it's not, because you can always be fitter, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to talk down. I mean, everyone's journey is different. Everyone has, that's the other thing is, I only have these thoughts because of the journey that I've been on. And so you can't tell someone, well, this is the way to do it, because they have to go through it all themselves. There's a proverb, and it's like, um, if I tell you, you'll forget. If I show you, you'll remember. If you do it, you will know.
Yeah.
And so this kind of idea of like, I can tell my son that the pot on the stove is hot. I can tell him about it. Okay. I can show him that it's boiling, and he kind of maybe gets a bit of more of an understanding. But until he touches that pot, he doesn't truly know. And so that's what's so amazing about life, in my opinion, is just, let's just get every experience we possibly can. Let's put our best foot forward, try to achieve the best we can in this one experience, but let's have multiple experiences.
Yeah.
And that will make you such a well-rounded person. When like, I talk to people, and I have stories for days, and I think that they think I'm lying. Everyone's like, bro, you have too many stories. You have too many, like, there's no way one person could have this many wild stories. And I'm like, it's just because I put myself in so many different situations, in so many different ways, that you just are bound to, like, collect these experiences. Like jujitsu, motocross, street bike racing. I did football when I was in high school. Obviously, the cycling thing's been huge. Now running is becoming something different. Having a family, running a business, all these things just, like, add to these experiences, to where then you have context. So it's hard, again, to say this is the way you should do it. I sort of feel like advice in this scenarios, it's a moot point. Go out there, find it yourself, because you might find something different than what I found. But just move in a direction. Just start moving, and you'll end up in a pretty sweet place.
I like that. Because I've been struggling with like, as a new dad, business owner, like the singles, like the coffee trailer that you got coffee, right? Like all these things, I'm just so young in my life, done the cycling at very high level. And it just takes a lot of time, and you ultimately, as a young dad, need to make money. So I've been, like, really navigating my life and figuring out what's important and what's not that important. And I've had also a lot of life experience. I think I'm a master of none. Wait, what's the saying?
A
Uh,
jack of all trades, a
Jack of
master
all,
of none.
jack of all, master of none, and so, because I've just done so many different things, but now I'm at a point in my life where I have a baby, right? You're like, fuck, I really wish I wouldn't regret it, but maybe I should have gone down a path, to put me in a better spot for my daughter. But in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't have changed anything, because I'm at a point in my life where I'm almost grabbing the world by the nuts, you know? I can feel the nut hair a little bit. And so I don't know, but it's cool hearing that from you, because I've been, like, trying to start the podcast, and that's like nothing. I don't want to, that's more of like something that keeps me full, like talking to people like you and just talking to everyone that, the podcast brings me in front of that I normally wouldn't talk to, it's not like a business venture. Maybe one day would be great, but it's cool to hear that just like the one step at a time, the one podcast at a time, like going.
Well, if we jump into sort of a totally unrelated thing, but it's like content creation or creating something or, money, work, that sort of stuff. I've always thought if you don't want to worry about money, just don't worry about money. Uh, and that changes the way you create something. So if you were going to start a podcast and you said, this is the only way I'm going to make money, I have to do these certain things, you're going to come into this with a different perspective, and then it changes the way you create it. In sales, you'd call it like commission breath, where you're like, I have to fucking sell this thing right now. And so when I started creating YouTube stuff, that wasn't my job. And so I could create whatever I wanted to create, unattached to sponsors. I could say whatever I wanted to say. And so it was genuine.
Yeah.
And when you go into business or do something with the perspective of, let me just create the best thing I can create, regardless of how the income or money is, you might find yourself in a situation where all of a sudden it's returning a lot of revenue, or it's very fruitful, and you're like, holy shit, I didn't even plan for this to happen. I just followed my heart in this way. And I get questions about like, well, how I want to start doing YouTube. People will see some of the stuff I do and they're like, that seems easy. I could do that. I want to be an influencer. And then they try to make one video and they're like, oh, that's actually way harder than I thought it was going to be. Or they do it and they're like, where's all those brand deals? Where's all these views? Where's all this fame? And you're like, dude, it takes years,
Yeah.
to achieve something. And so yeah, I mean, just like changing how you look at things and how, like, where it's coming from, I feel like is so important in life,
Yeah. It's like when you're trying to go after a girl, or like it's kind of the same thing with money or careers. I feel like if you feel like you're trying to attach to it or seek its attention more and more and more, whatever you are seeking decides that they're not interested because it's like creepy, it's like the same thing. I feel like these last few years I've been like seeking that, that career path, that focus, and then as soon as I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do my thing and like kind of just go with the flow, man, it's like the whole world is in front of me.
Well, I just got my best ever result in a gravel race, in which the first time I said, I don't care about results. I just want to go out here and have a good time.
Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, whatever, the competition wasn't wildly stacked, but it doesn't matter. It was so funny to see uh, me achieve the best result on paper at the time where I wasn't trying to get a result at all.
Yeah.
So I just came into it with this level of stoke that ended up like just penetrating the whole day, to where then I was finishing the strongest I've ever finished. And I was kind of stoked about it. I was like, wow, this is so wild that I came into it with a totally different perspective. And so then the whole day was super fun. And, you know, when I put stuff up on YouTube, I've gotten really maybe like triggered a bit about my performance. As the views go up, my watts don't go up.
Yeah.
Just because I have more subscribers doesn't make me any better. And something very unique about cycling is how objective it is. If you're just I don't know, playing baseball, it's a little hard to know how good or not good you are. But in cycling, dude, you put the Strava up. What's your power? What's your time? I mean, it is very everyone can look at it and go, I know exactly how good or not good you are.
Yeah.
And now as the industry has just gotten, I mean, it's just, I said this in the video that I posted, like, I feel like this racing has passed me by. I mean, these kids are just so insanely fast. Gravel now has become a thing where that's what people are focusing on. They're
Yeah.
not, it's not just a side thing. This is the thing.
Yeah.
And so, trying uh to be competitive right now, I also feel wildly grateful that my brand isn't necessarily revolving around results, even though like I wanted to prove that I could get a result.
Hmm.
But you think about Peter Setna, uh, he kind of came into the industry when it wasn't exploding. He sort of brought all of this attention to it. And now you have at a big gravel race, you have 20 guys that are world class. And then you have Keegan, who just doesn't make any sense, and how frustrating must it be to, line up and be like, man, I need like 4 or 5 guys to crash to like even see the front.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the competition is so wild. And so, I've really had to shift my perspective so that I don't feel so inadequate. You get 50th. And in the grand scheme of things, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
But that's kind of hard on social media to flex and be like, bro, got 51st. Like that's not, so
And I'm,
uh
yeah. And I'm sure it's so hard too, because like you have to say, like, you have to, you're telling your following, for me to take 50th, I could just be like, because there was no content, I just tell my wife, like, fuck. And I took 61st at Sea Otter, and at Sea Otter Classic Lifetime Grand Prix out of 150, it's not that bad, right? The first lap was great. Like I was like top 30, and then I just bonked. But I only told my wife, yeah, I kind of sucked. I didn't have to tell
yeah,
everyone else, but with like you have to say, like, yeah, I got 62nd, and that's amazing. But when it's you're like, my ego is like busted, and everyone's so fucking fast now. Everyone.
yeah, that's
Like,
wild. But again, I just want to tell a good story now. And so then racing, I love racing. I love crit racing. It's my favorite type of discipline, even though that's my least proficient. But banging bars, like the speed, the crowds, like it's really, really cool.
yeah.
But I just have no chance to really make any sort of compelling story with that. It's so, I just want to yeah, I'm trying to like focus this on different things. Also, there's this guy, Average Rob, and I looked at his channel and I felt like, dude, that's what I should have done. This guy, Average Rob, he's just average, and he goes out and he does these above average things, and so he'll run a marathon. He doesn't say, I got 520th in this marathon, and everyone goes, boo, you suck. He just goes, I did a marathon, and everyone goes, yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I was thinking like, why am I not doing something more like this? This guy's having so much fun. He's making great content. People are stoked. People are encouraged to go out and do whatever they want to do. But I was so holding on to that result that if I did a marathon for the first time, never done a marathon before, but if I feel like I had to say what place I got.
Yeah.
And then even if 1,000 comments said, that's amazing, that's great, that's so good, one comment goes, meh. And it just like crushes me. I'm just like, shit, dude. And
Like the
yeah, I don't
trolls, I'm
know.
sure. Reading
Say it
those
again.
comments, like through like if you were to read the comments and like the trolls, I mean, people behind a screen can be brutal.
Yeah, there's a couple that I now recognize, and you just can't respond because that's what they want you to do. I mean, they say something so outlandish it it's not, it doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
but you hear it in your head. And if we go all the way back to voices in your head, they did this study about reading negative comments. And if you read them in your head, your brain picks it up as you. So when someone says, boo, you suck, and then you read that comment in your head, you are saying to yourself, boo, you suck. And so it hurts more
Yeah.
than if you were to. So then they had it where people read the comments, or they had like a voice chat, like read it out loud, and it didn't affect them. Like literally their like cortisol didn't spike, their brain activity didn't spike. If they just heard the computer say, boo, you suck, you kind of just go, well, whatever.
Yeah.
But when you read that comment, dude, it's kind of gnarly. And so I've really had to try to stay away from that a little bit. But then also the kind of love that I get, I feel that it's not fair for me to just not look at any comments, because I'm too weak to battle the one or two negative comments out there.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to look at what these people, and, and it's crazy. I don't know how to deal with this sometimes, but a lot of people will say things like that I've changed their life. And if you've never watched any of my videos and you don't know who I am, that can sound so arrogant and conceited. And I mean, I, like I said, I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to respond to that. But I've had that a lot of times where people say, whatever, it was just something about your video got me off the couch. I stopped drinking. I lost 100 pounds. I am the healthiest I've ever been. You know, you reminded me to take my wife on a picnic. You know, like they they have just become a better version of them, you know, with this little bit of stoke that I shared.
Yeah.
And that's, dude, that's legacy shit. That
Yeah.
is beyond what money I make or how many views I get. Was someone impacted for the better? And then now they can do that with their family. I mean, if you start to think about how many people on the chain that were affected positively by just some stoke riding, you
Yeah.
know, like I don't know, dude, it's kind of wild, man. It's been making me feel a little bit better about what I do for a living. To sort of change my perspective on that and see some of those comments.
Yeah. And that's why um you are such an influence. Because when I watch your videos, you just come with such a stoke, a great energy, a great vibe. Even when you watch your videos and you're completely bonked, you're just so down. You're still real and you're still compassionate. And there's never like when you hit those moments, you can tell if like you can see someone's true colors. It's like you can see that Tyler is a compassionate, loving person, even when you are absolutely done. So
Well, so that is something that I think is so important about pushing yourself to an absolute breaking point, is that you find you're so exhausted you can't hold this mask up. And so it's very common in ultra events for the racer to be very mean to their crew.
mhm.
It's just what happens. You're exhausted, you're everything, you just get very short. And sometimes you can yell and whatever. And when you're in those places, you have a moment to sort of open up your source code and look at who you are as a human. And sometimes you don't like that. And if
Yeah,
you can be receptive to it and sort of look at what you are doing in these moments of weakness, you can change it. And so I really like who I am as a base human when all of the stuff I try to portray fades away, and it's just my, yeah, just who I am. And I'm still compassionate towards my wife and my kids and the people around me and the crew. That has been probably the biggest thing that I've gotten out of this whole journey, is just being able to change who you are actually and not just pretend. Like social media is so easy to pretend to be someone. And as long as people are seeing it, but like you turn off the camera and all of a sudden your voice changes and your demeanor changes and then you kick a cat across the room, like that, that's not me. Like what I am on TV or YouTube or whatever, that's just how I am in real life.
Mhm.
But it's because I've worked on that. Because the first couple times I wasn't that way and I was really negative and short. I mean, just that's how it is with, you do something really hard. Um, you could be really negative, really down, really angry. And I was like, well, I don't want that. That's stupid. Like I don't like that person.
Yeah.
And so then you just kind of change that a little bit over time. And yeah, that again, that's just like when I bring other people on big, big, huge projects, it's very interesting to see them go through this. And you're like, I think I know this person. But then when they get to that really, really low point, what are they like there? And it's like, okay, that's who you really are.
That's who.
And yeah, and so then you can connect with people. Uh, Even though Jeremiah and I are a little bit on the rocks, me and him have been through so much together that I know him and he knows me on such a deep, level
Yeah.
that we no, regardless of what happens with our relationship, we will always like love each other in that way and
Mhm.
understand each other. Yeah, it's because you do something with a friend or a group of people, you go out and you have a crazy adventure, man, you could bond with each other for a lifetime because you
Totally.
go through this just insane peaks and valleys together. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And you can see, like you were saying, yeah, the true self, the like like the child, like the child version of yourself. Like we have those wounded childs and we have, you know, at the core, when you were beat, you can, I've had people where I'm like, dude, I want to continue this relationship with you for life. I love you. And there's other people I've been on big adventures where I'm like, I'd be cool if like we never talked again,
Totally. Right.
Because I'm an optimist. I'm, happy. I crack jokes even at like 300 miles in. I haven't done a 300-mile ride, but deep into rides, right? Like I'm still cracking jokes, still trying to be the light. Um, because it's just how I am. Even if, we're in the room and you have to shed that mask. But yeah, that's interesting. It's like such a,
Well, there was an impossible route where we brought this guy Eddie Anderson on, and he was riding for Alpecin
yeah,
Phoenix, Vanderpool's teammate. And Eddie is amazing. He's an amazing human, so bright and fun. And on day 4, he had a moment, and it was so awesome. We didn't get it on camera, but he had a moment where he tried to break his bike in half. Like he was so over it, he was so tired, and then all of a sudden, I saw him just. He was like bunny hopping his bike, like trying to break it, and I was like, "Dang, dude, he's losing it." And then it was like a big moment for him because he then stopped. He was like, I've never had that happen before. I've never lost control of my temper.
yeah,
I've never seen this part of me before. And he kept apologizing for it. And I was like, dude, this is what this is about, is like finding those little cracks. And it was, I think he came away of that trip learning something about himself that he's been able to take with for, in the future. And but that was such a cool thing to see. And then to see how he handled it.
yeah,
So like, oh, I just cracked big time. I'm a little embarrassed how I behaved, but I'm gonna use this to better myself.
yep,
And no one was like, it wasn't, no one was, it wasn't cringy or no one was upset with them. Everyone was like stoked to see him go to that low point, because when you see these really talented athletes, a big through line is that they do not express emotion.
Yeah.
They, no matter how they're feeling inside, they don't let that weakness show. And that's a lot of times why they're so elite, is because they put on this like stone face. But it's, yeah, it's just really interesting to see everyone have their breaking point and then what they do, after the fact. But
You
yeah.
can see, yeah, you can see someone's true character. That's why I love endurance sports. It's just outside of competition, like those big group rides or the big adventures with a buddy where you have to plan all day, like we're gonna be gone. And then towards the end of the day, you're like, wow, dude, you're a dick. Like we're having fun, we're on two wheels, like it's hard. But like be nice. We're all, it's all fun and games. Like we are literally kids right now riding bicycles. And we decided to do it for a very long time, but at the end of the day, let's I see you now, you know?
Totally, totally, totally.
Yeah. Um, well, sweet, dude. I'm like just so overly, we're gonna use it again, stoked, that we were able to get on and like I'm stoked that you came onto the podcast and you're giving me and my viewers the time of day. And I was super nervous like when I saw you after 24 hours of Old Pueblo, just because I know who you are and stuff like that. And the way you treated me and treated everyone around you was so real and like as if you weren't like quote unquote a very famous cyclist. So I want to thank you for that. Um,
Well, I appreciate, I mean, I don't see that. I don't see myself like that in
yeah,
any way. And so I didn't do this for fame. And I'm not actually, sometimes people say, oh, influencers are so they're narcissists. Dude, I am so shy, and I'm very self-deprecating. Like I don't know. I don't see myself that way. And what's cool about living in the mountains is that I don't really interact with a ton of people. It's like I will literally interact with bears more than I do people not my family. Um, and so when I go to these events, I kind of think like no one knows who I am, and I'm just like, floating through. And then when I get all this love and this attention, uh, my stoke is like, whoa, like this is surprising to me.
yeah,
And then I've been I've neglected human contact for so long because I just live in the middle of nowhere, that then I'm able to try to match that energy. I got to imagine if you're a big time celebrity and you're getting bombarded with people every single day. How do you look at anyone as new or unique? Everyone just becomes a fan, and so then you're not able to look at them as like an individual human. But this sport is so neat that you're out there kind of having the same experience that I am, and everyone, we're all doing this together. And so the connection here is just like, it's unlike any other sport, I feel like. So it's amazing. It's amazing to meet you, and I'm stoked that I'm able to come on the podcast. And just this whole community, just the adventure community is freaking rips, man. I love to be a part of it.
dude, it freaking rips. And like from talking to you to like a dad who lives in Dillon, Colorado, who just like does bike pack races for fun. Like we all have that one thing in common, where we just like to seek adventure and we kind of like to seek pain. And it kind of sounds fucked up the way we say that, but that's why I can like it almost sounds like me and you, we could probably just like be at a coffee shop and just shoot the shit for hours, like the podcast, or vice versa. Someone comes up to you who is 75 years old, but rides every single day 20 miles, and you guys have that, like there's a common ground where like you're instantly friends. And so yeah, dude,
Which regardless of your status,
Yeah.
That's something that I've always thought is really cool is you could be riding with a neurosurgeon who makes 500 grand a year and is wildly intelligent, but you drop him on the climb, who's the better human right here?
Yeah.
Like it kind of like equalizes. You don't have to be rich, you don't have to be smart. Like when you have an adventure, when you're doing something physical, it just comes down to you know two bodies going against each other, and so then it sort of equalizes the respect. If you are um, a high level business guy, whatever, you're making 20 million a year. I think it's probably hard for you to respect other businessmen that aren't at your level. And
Yeah.
so then you sort of, just how we all do with like tiers and social circles, you look down or up, and that all gets washed away. If you're doing a trail run or a mountain bike ride or a road ride, whatever, it all just, I don't do a group ride and I go, he's a doctor, he's a scientist, he works for NASA, that guy's homeless. You know what I mean? Like, what doesn't matter. It's just we're all just riders right now. It's really really cool how that just equalizes everything.
Totally. Yeah. I've had conversations with people where I'm like, whoa, dude, you're a engineer at Gore? What? How do you have time? Yeah, dude, no, I'm an engineer at Gore. That's just what I do. I'm like, that's it. Because in Flagstaff, Arizona is where I'm at. So we have like Gore-Tex, like the big, coats, and they do like medical equipment and stuff like that. So I was on a group ride, and yeah, we just talked to a random person, and yeah, he's just like an engineer who's creating the new heart valve. You're like, that's sick, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, yeah, sorry,
Awesome.
like this is the sprint time. Let's go, dude. All right, let's go. You know, yeah, I totally agree. But um, yeah, dude,
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll see you at another event here soon, and we can shred some bikes together and share the
abs
stoke.
absolutely, dude. So much love, yeah, and thank you again.